Opposition leader Keir Starmer said on Thursday that Boris Johnson's own party had finally come to the conclusion that he was unsuitable as Prime Minister, and immediately followed up with a threat. If Johnson, as he announced, wants to remain in office until the Conservatives had settled his successor, Labour would seek a vote of no confidence in the government in the House of Commons. Unlikely to impress the Tory faction, which has a whopping 86-seat majority. At the Prime Minister's weekly question time, or the PMQs, Starmer had made some Conservative politicians pale. The Labour leader slipped back into the role he does best, that of a prosecutor. He meticulously dissected Johnson's web of lies in the case of allegations of sexual violence against MP Chris Pincher. And since Starmer's speech featured a few well-placed punchlines, it was also well received by commentators who otherwise find him a decent and hard-working politician, but also colourless. His followers, on the other hand, are convinced that Starmer's reputation as a reliable bore has offered the best possible contrast to Johnson's loose cannon so far. In 2020, Starmer was elected party leader by a large majority, partly because it initially seemed unlikely that he would say goodbye to the social and economic agenda of his predecessor Jeremy Corbyn. After all, he himself served in Corbyn's shadow cabinet as Brexit minister. But his personnel policy quickly spoke a different language. With a sharp sword of the anti-Semitism accusation, he had Corbyn expelled from the group and cleaned the front benches of the group of members of the left wing. But it remained a mystery as to what political vision the party leader, who is considered a so-called soft leftist, was pursuing. When it comes to Brexit, there's now more clarity. Starmer rules out that there will be a return to the EU with a Labour government and no re-entry into the internal market and the customs union. And that from the mouth of the once vehement supporter of remaining in the EU, who swore the party against its then leader to a yes to a second referendum. Overcome the Tory majority from this position in the next election? Well, the polls results do not show that. But with Starmer at the helm, the gap between Labour and the Liberal Democrats has narrowed. In many constituencies, the latter are the strongest opponents of the Conservatives. And many voters want a progressive anti-Tory alliance. They are willing to tick the opposition party with the best prospects. There are still no official agreements between Starmer and Ed Davey, that's the leader of the Liberal Democrats. And UK Labour Party leader Keir Starmer, like Prime Minister Boris Johnson, has also been under pressure over lockdown parties. Now, however, no penal order should be issued against him, said the police in the northern English city of Durham. Starmer and his deputy Angela Rayner, who was also at a questionable lockdown meeting, had said they would resign if they received a court order. The outgoing Conservative Prime Minister, or should I say Crime Minister Boris Johnson, on the other hand, continued to rule despite a penalty order. The investigation into Starmer began after a video leak showing him with a bottle of beer in a campaign office with colleagues. The case was therefore also referred to as Beergate by the media. The incident took place in April 2021, just before a Hartlepool Borough by-election. Starmer has always said he ate and drank with co-workers at work. The police followed this argument and ended the investigation without consequences for those involved. The Durham Constabulary said that the corona rules had not been violated. While Starmer announced his resignation if fined, Prime Minister Boris Johnson refused to step down after being fined £50 by the police. He had attended a party in his office in 2020, which the police believed violated corona regulations. People told me I was taking a risk if I said I'd resign if I got a fine. That's what Starmer said at a news conference. But that's never been my point. For me, it is a question of principle. Who makes the law should not be allowed to break the law. And I would love, even if it's still very improbable at the moment, to see some principle return to the British government. And I'll see you in my next video. Viel Spaß!